Hello and welcome back to Hobby Haven, where we discuss people's hobbies and passions. I am your host, Liz Ely. I hope you guys are having a great week, because this week we are on with Roi Norber. He is a UW student studying economics, and while economics is oh so fun, he has his side hobby of planes. Let's get into it.
I'm Roi Norber, and I grew up in Chicago. I love it. I personally love it. You have a lot going on. You have a lot you're thinking about, but it's really beautiful. There's a certain amount of freedom. You can just point it wherever you want and fly for the most part, and it's really incredible. It's pretty unique.
Look at that hunger and passion for flying planes. This is why we have this podcast. We want to share that passion and that drive. However, while we love to hear it, I think we need to hear how this passion started. So let's get into it.
I've always been really interested in planes because my dad's a pilot recreationally, and my uncle is a professional pilot. So ever since I was a kid, we were always going to air shows and seeing performances, and I was going flying with them. It never really sparked. It was just kind of always there. When I was a teenager, I joined auxiliary unit of the U.S. Air Force. It was like a volunteer thing, and they had a lot of cool programs. And through that, I got to go to a 1 week long flight school where I got my first solo flight in. I got my first 10 official hours of flight training, and at the end of the week, I flew the plane by myself for the first time. And then once I finished, I was the top graduate from the class, so then I got a full scholarship for the rest of my license.
I know we can all imagine the feeling of partaking in our own hobbies, but a solo flight? I can't even imagine the nerves. But let's hear what Roi has to say.
Yeah, it was really cool. I felt ready, but also pretty nervous. I was only up for about probably 9 or 10 minutes. Maybe a little bit more. I remember I was just pushing down all of my fear because I'm like, all right, not time to be scared. It's time to do this. And so funny enough, I remember being pretty calm. And then after I landed, just sitting there before taking the plane back to where I needed to park it. And then all of the fear just hit me all at once. And it's I don't know why I'm scared now. I just finished doing it, but it was all the fear that I was just pushing down for 10 minutes. That was an interesting 2 minutes that I just spent there sitting.
Well, I love to hear about the passion. Let's get into the juicy stuff. I want to hear all about a scary flight experience Roi had.
I flew with a friend once who's also a pilot, but he wasn't a pilot yet. He was still learning. Probably a couple months after I had gotten my license, 4 or 5 months maybe. And we were taking off in a really small 2-seater airplane out of Madison. And we drove all the way from Chicago to do it because we were really bored during COVID lockdown. So we're all right, let's just go up. Who cares? We'll just do all the driving so we could fly for an hour. And as we were taking off, the engine started shuddering a little bit and it wasn't producing full power. So there was a while where I actually was not sure we were going to be able to clear some of the buildings. So that was a fun experience, but thankfully we cleared them and I managed to get enough altitude that I was able to turn around and land the plane right away. Then after that, we calmed our nerves for a little bit, had some water, and then got a different airplane and flew again.
I think that might be one of my worst fears during an airplane ride. So let's just move on from that and hear about one of his favorite flights instead.
Okay, my favorite flight was my sophomore year of college. I flew home for the day to surprise my mom for her birthday. I didn't tell her I was doing it. I only told my dad and my brother. And so I got up really early in the morning in Madison. I took the plane. I flew it to Chicago. At airports, you have this thing called crew cars where you could take a car out for free for the day if you're landing there. And so I took the car out and drove it home, and I just knocked on the door and surprised her for her birthday. We had lunch together and everything like that. And then I flew back, and actually flying back, I was flying over Chicago as the sun was setting on my left and it was completely nighttime on my right. And my parents sent me back with these Argentine cookies. So I just put the autopilot on, watched the sunset, and ate cookies from 6,000 feet in the air. And I don't think I've been happier ever in my life.
Maybe I can get on a plane after that story. However, I know that when I'm traveling, it gets long and boring. And I just want to get off the plane and get to my destination. I wonder how Roi deals with the boringness, or does he ever get bored?
It never gets old. Every single time I do it, it just feels really incredible and exciting. One of my favorite things doing is taking people flying for that have never been in small airplanes before and explaining them everything and seeing their reaction as we take off and everything like that. But it never gets less exciting. It's always really fun and really incredible.
The next time we go on vacation, just think, maybe this plane ride isn't as boring as we think. Maybe it's just because we're on the wrong spot on the plane. But there has to be at least one part he doesn't like, right?
I like it all. Even all the prep that I have to do before the flight. Before the flight, I'll spend hours with the weather forecast and doing calculations for the plane's performance, and even that part I enjoy. Overall, this seems like not such a bad hobby. If I didn't have to pop a Dramamine, maybe I could get into it. Well, that's all I have for today, everyone. This is your host, Liz Ely with Hobby Haven. Join us next time with Harold for his hobby for feed photography.